Welcome to the Appliance Educator podcast, presented by Z-Line Kitchen and Bath, attainable luxury designed in Lake Tahoe. On this episode, we have tips on what to look at before purchasing an older home with Scott Dixon from Everyday Home Repairs. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Appliance Educator podcast. This is Drew, and I've got Nick with me.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
And today we're joined by Scott Dixon from Everyday Home Repairs. Thanks for joining us, Scott.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome. Yeah, we're really excited to talk today. Nick and I have both checked out the content on your channel, and to me, it was just super informative. It's something that feels incredibly approachable and really is about what Appliance Educator is trying to bring to our audience too. So to dive right into it, Scott, tell the audience, what do you do? Where are you at? And talk about your YouTube channel.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess to lay some groundwork, I spent about 15 years in corporate America, more on the engineering side of things. So I spent about 12 years with Caterpillar, designing and testing bulldozers, wheel loaders, excavators, these type of things, and kind of got into taking data from machines. So how to process data, how to get value from reading out that data. So I got into this growing area called data analytics. Basically, every sector is growing in this space, and that's just how to use data, how to get smarter about your business, how do you know your customers better, how do you meet their needs in a more efficient manner. So I took that and I started working at a company. I left Caterpillar and started working at a sandwich brand called Jimmy John's. So I started processing sales data from Jimmy John's and understanding the consumer. And doing that, I got more exposure to marketing, right? More exposure to how do you do ads on Facebook and Instagram and just all these different social media platforms. Got a little bit more exposure from a brand trying to meet the consumer there and trying to drive their value proposition through that. So in that, I was like, how hard is it to get 100 views on YouTube or 1,000 views on YouTube or 10,000 views on YouTube? So the way I always learned was basically boots on the ground. So I was like, well, I got some rental properties. I'm always doing things around the house. I'm always fixing my rental properties. So why don't I make a YouTube channel? Why don't I see how easy or hard it is to gain views and get some traction on that platform? So I just, this was about 3.5 years ago, I started off and I just simply said, I'm going to make 10 videos. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm not going to try to be the best in the world. I'm just going to make 10 videos helping to show people how to fix things around their house. So I did that and kind of went through those 10 and start to see some videos gaining some traction, getting a couple thousand views. And then I just kept setting 10 video goals for myself, just kind of 10 video goals to build up the channel. And then one summer, I think it's the summer of 2019, then YouTube started to pick my content up a little bit more, feature it to more people, and the channel started to grow. So I started taking it more seriously. So in 2020, I did one video per week, again, just showing projects around the house. And then in 2021, I actually went full time. So YouTube is my focus. But I also focus on buying properties. So I market to sellers that have off-market properties, and then I will purchase those and do some level of rehab to those. And that's where a lot of the content for the channel comes, because I see all sorts of issues and all sorts of things that need fixing. So I'll package that up and put it on the channel, and the channel's doing well right now. So right now we're at 176 videos on the channel, and we'll make it to 225 by the end of the year and keep going from there.
Congrats. That's great.
Yeah, that's a great story. Have you seen your production value grow, and what have you learned from that in that aspect?
Yeah, production is challenging in my space in that I'm not in a studio, right? So I'm moving from this 1900s built home to this 1990s built home. So sometimes when I'm doing a project, I want to do a talking head video like this, explaining a project, explaining what's behind me, whatever that is. And it might be in literally an echo chamber. Like it might be in a wood panel room with wood flooring, like the worst setup you'd ever have for good audio. So I haven't figured that out, but I have figured out, getting a lavalier mic and a shotgun mic, but I still only use my iPhone 12 Pro Max. So I'm still only using my phone, which should also show people it's very approachable to, if you're interested in starting something like this. You don't need to have, the latest equipment, and you don't have to go out there and spend thousands of dollars. You can get started. It's all about the content. Content is king in this business. So just getting started and leading with value is, I think, where it's at.
Yeah, the new video on these iPhones and new phones that are coming out are crazy. They're up to like 4K and plus, and just incredible looking video.
Yeah, it kind of, the quality is right there unless you're ready to really jump into like a high-end DSLR, and I think it's awesome that you got this engineering and analytics background, and that makes a lot of sense bringing the content that you do to YouTube. Talk to you about your entry into real estate too, because that kind of sounds like the third piece of this perfect storm to kind of develop your content.
Yeah. And I guess the takeaway also is just, I really like so business is changing in pretty much every industry. So you really need to think through, how can you change with it? How can you be competitive if you have a business, or go into a field and get a job that's growing, right? Opposed to declining. So I really like the combination of offline business, where you can generate value and hopefully income, and online business, where you can generate value and income. So right now I'm kind of 50-50. Offline business is purchasing homes, pretty traditional real estate investor. People have been doing this for, hundreds of years, as purchasing properties of some form, purchasing those under market value, improving them somehow, and then selling those at market value. So that's what I do now. If it is, swinging the hammer, that is featured in some of those videos. But now, the buying is getting to the sense where I'm buying 2 or 3 properties per month. So some of those, I'm just purchasing and cleaning those up, and kind of selling those to a rehabber for them to do the projects on. So that's my offline business. It's very much a marketing business as well. You have to get in front of people, right, for them to know that you are the easy button to sell their house type of thing. And then the online business, the other part, is creating evergreen content, as we've talked about on the channel. So if people don't know what evergreen content is, when you start a YouTube channel, and if you're talking about a very contemporary topic, maybe the Olympics are coming up, you talk a lot about sports, you talk a lot about the Olympics, you might, if you have a good channel, right, and have some traction, you might get some views for a while, but those views are going to go away. There's not too many people going to be searching about the Olympics once we've moved past that, and it's no longer kind of a trending topic. Evergreen content is evergreen. It's always there, or at least there for long periods of time. How to change a kitchen faucet, how to install blinds, how to install a doorknob, right? It's going to be there for years and years and years. So you can really build up a lot of momentum in a channel by using evergreen content, and then you don't have to basically get on a treadmill of content. If you're that trendy topic, you always need to produce videos or produce podcasts or whatever you're doing to get those views or to get those listeners. If you're an evergreen library, it's really a momentum play. It's, you're putting energy in it, you get that flywheel spinning, but once that flywheel is spinning, it has a lot of energy behind it. And then you can just put in a little more energy and it keeps growing. And it's actually a really powerful way to grow a business.
Yeah, that's kind of how we've ran our channel too, is, what's the most topic or searched items that we can help people with on home improvement stuff. And then it sits there and people can always find it.
Yeah, because a lot of those questions don't change.
No, and I think there is a huge opportunity, one, in the trades. So just being a plumber, being an electrician, being a carpenter, HVAC tech, appliance repairman, right? Just the trades alone has a gap. I think there's a huge opportunity if you're skilled and hardworking to grow a very healthy business. But then if you can have some form of online presence where you're helping people through troubleshooting their furnace, there's a lot of opportunity in that kind of mindset from both sides, and you can really, really grow a healthy business
Yeah,
with that mindset.
being that go-to person for each one of those specific areas of need that you just explained is, the face of the plumber, the face of the electrician. Like, there isn't that yet.
Yeah, and putting your marketing hat on too, and looking at like the reputability of your brand, and how like just sharing quality information is a great way to sort of build a brand, especially when it's your face as your brand.
And stuff that you're using in your home every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
on that, Scott, what, just to get a little contemporary, have you noticed any significant changes as far as the pandemic as it relates to your flipping or your content or project or traffic that you've seen in the last year or so?
Yeah, it's a little harder with mine because the brand was just growing nicely throughout that, right? So it wasn't like it had a established business and the pandemic changed up or down the business. It was growing the whole time. But when the pandemic started, you definitely did see some people that were doing a little bit more DIY at home, probably spending more time inside the house. So they're seeing those deficiencies more and more, and the honey-do list of things that they needed to knock out. They couldn't get away from because they're always at the house. So we had more search traffic. It was a nice launch, but at the same time, from a business perspective, the revenue that you received for every 1,000 views substantially went down at the start of the pandemic.
Really?
Because brands and companies were like, "Whoa, what's going on here? Let's pump the brakes a little bit on our marketing budget." It bounced back several months down the road, but yeah, that did shift quite a bit at the start of the pandemic.
Wow, I wouldn't even think about that one. But yeah, the less advertising, the less money there is to get back to the creators.
Yeah, especially when there's just a lot more traffic at the same amount of consumers. And how did you see the pandemic affect, the career in flipping these homes?
Well, the real estate market is smoking hot right now for it's a seller's market, right? So if you're trying to find a house and you just want a good house for your family, you're doing everything you can. You're buying as is, you're going above asking price on the first day. You might not even seen the property. There's just a lot going on out there for people to try to get homes. I do caution people in that. When you buy as is, when you start doing those things, there's serious hooks that go along with that. So that electrical system, that plumbing system, all those things behind the walls and in the attic and the crawl space that you probably didn't get eyes on, that is now yours. And there could be big price tags down the road. If you're needing to rewire a house or replumb a house, or if you had some foundation issues. So I do caution people. I kind of said the same message in a recent video that I put out is I totally get having to be competitive to get a home, but do be careful buying as is. Now I buy as is. And overall, again, my home buying business has kind of grown during the pandemic. So I left corporate America and focused full time on this, right? And put more marketing dollars into this and grew my website. So most people that want to sell their house, they go to my website, they fill out the information on their house, and I reach out to them, contact them, come by and take a look at the house and see if we can come to terms on purchasing it. So again, that business has grown throughout the pandemic. It is definitely harder for me to purchase properties off market just because it is a seller's market. They have a lot of different options.
What's the inventory like where you're at right now? Is it
super low?
Low as well? Yeah, here in Reno.
Yeah.
I've been on the hunt. I actually close on a place in this month, but it's been
nice
7-month battle and just,
huge, yeah.
getting outbid over asking like 40 grand and stuff. It's just been intimidating for sure. And then you find something and it's like, this isn't exactly what I think I want. This will do for what I need right now.
Yeah, and I mean, most people aren't in the position like, oh, if they have a house, I'm going to sell my house, get the highest and best offer. That's awesome. And then I'm going to somehow wait to buy that next house so I can get a great deal, right? Usually you're moving towns, or you need some place to live, you need a roof over your head. So it's kind of hard to play the market like that, unless you rent for a couple of years and then magically the market goes down. But timing that stuff is pretty challenging.
Unpredictable.
Ours market's unique too because we have a huge influx of people from California, and so they're coming in and
Yeah.
able to, hey, I just sold my home in California. I've got a ton of cash, and it's just a kind of open warfare of cash over asset.
Yeah, you've seen a lot of that, and that is some of those people trying to arbitrage, right? Trying to like sell for the highest best in one of the highest price markets, and maybe get out of Dodge when it comes to California. And a lot of different states have from Texas to Arizona to Idaho to Utah to Nevada. A lot of those states have tangibly had their market shift because they just didn't have that much inventory to begin with. So, even if 10 or 50 or 100 people come into town, I mean, that is a new dynamic you didn't have before.
Yeah, absolutely. What markets are you in, Scott? Just as far, like, are you nationwide, or is there some particular geographic?
No, and same thing, like when I said boots on the ground before, right? So I go see every house. I want to meet the seller type of thing. So I'm in Central Illinois. So I live in Champaign, Illinois, where University of Illinois is at, and then I kind of stretch out basically an hour in every direction. I do a lot of business in small towns. 3,000 people, 5,000 people. At least in our area, some of the small towns have the best school districts and great communities. So they might not have all the buyers because it's just not a population center, but very, very good houses and attractive actually to people that want to kind of live that small town vibe, have a great community, and then have a strong school district.
Yeah, and with Illinois, I'm sure there's a lot of quality rural neighborhoods where you can still commute to the larger metro areas for business. So that probably works really.
Yep. Super, super common.
To circle back to you on the information you share, one of the videos we watched here that I thought was fantastic is the old house inspection, top 5 issues. To me, that was just super approachable and something that was just like, these are the great things that you want to go in and take a look at. And I think the content worked even better, that it wasn't a picture perfect scenario that you're walking into. Sticks to my mind is when you're looking at the foundation, there's probably about 5 different materials and approaches supporting it. What kind of brought you to, is that what you've seen and felt, hey, I need to document this for everybody, or kind of talk about that project?
Yeah. I mean, that one isn't uncommon, right? So I wanted to also bring light to, these are some real things that people are going to find especially when they're purchasing an older home. There's, depending on when the electrical was updated, it could have knob and tube like I had in that home, which a lot of people do not want knob and tube in their home. Some insurance companies actually don't want to see knob and tube as well because right or wrong, it's seen as a little bit more of a fire hazard, or at least opportunity to have issues. So yeah, that one was one I picked up, purchased, and I was doing a little bit of work to it. And some of those things we talked about were things that also came up in the home inspection. And one thing people need to keep in mind in small towns is often you're not pulling permits. So if somebody owned the home before you, there's no real inspection body that you need to pull an electrical permit to do that work, and then you'll have an electrical inspector come through that home, right? So in all cities, Reno, and basically every major city, you have electrical inspectors, plumbing inspectors, just general construction, framing. So you have a little bit of a cushion there, assuming that people pulled permits for that work. But in small towns, you usually don't have that safety net. So your home inspection is kind of your eyes on the home's system and your basically advisor to what is right or wrong with the home. So in small towns, you do need to be a little bit more careful, knowing that maybe there's a little bit more flexibility with how that home was built or maintained over the years. And the over 100-year house that we featured in that video was basically a perfect example of that. The light switches were super high up, the outlets were like, a lot of things were like, I don't know exactly why they did this. And then in the crawl space, it was interesting, the supports and different things that they had used over time, and some not even connected, right? Some like there, but like 3 inches of gap, and old water lines that were there that weren't being used. And just some classic things that you see with some of the older homes.
What did you do to repair some of that foundation under the crawl space area? Like that looked like a nightmare.
Yeah.
I spent multiple days in said crawl space. And there was a few different things. One, I was what are called sistering the floor joists. So I was taking a new 2x10 or beam, and I was putting those between supports, and then I was basically either gluing and or securing those together with the ones that might have had damage. What you'll see in older homes a lot is maybe a plumber came through or electrician, and then they cut maybe a sizable hole in that structure of the home, which can really weaken it. So a few spots I needed to put in some basically reinforcement, and then just needed to square away all the supports down there. So all those different kind of everything. That one had railroad tie, standard bricks, larger bricks, old bottle jacks. Like it just had kind of like 80 years of support structures down there. So I just took a lot of that out and put just a little bit more modern adjustable supports down there, which are just those adjustable pillars that you often see down in like basements or crawl space. So just cleaned it up quite a bit, and then just made sure that there wasn't any part of the home that wasn't being supported like it was when I purchased it.
I know sometimes, foundation is one of those things that people get a little scary about, especially when purchasing a home, because it's like, you never know, there may be a disaster under there and you're going to feel really defeated. Do you allocate a certain budget for a project when you get in a home based on the value, or how do you kind of, say, hey, look, I'm buying something to fix it up to increase value for the market? What's kind of the initial equation you bring to the table assessing the project?
Yeah, I usually always start with an after repaired value. So I look at comparable properties that sold in the last 6 months. Now in small towns, this is very hard as well because there might not have been much that sold within that time period that's similar to that house. So in those cases, I do calculate a little bit more buffer because there's risk there. You don't know exactly. But start with that after repaired value. So if you think a home after you fix it, depending on whether you're painting and flooring and fixing some of the plumbing, electrical, maybe it's $100,000. So that's my starting point. And then I start to just back out all of my cost. And then I add in my profit. So this is a business, so I need to make some profit in there. And then that is my offer price. But most people, I guess, sell to me because it's truly the easy button. They don't have to move anything out of the house, so they can leave a bunch of stuff in the house. They can leave stuff in the refrigerator. They can, you literally pack your bags and leave. And then we close within, more like a 2-week time period, opposed to what would be more in a first-time home buyer. One, you got a lot more inspections because there's probably a bank loan behind that. So it's more like a 45-day or 60-day close period. So ours, we close as fast as 9 days is as fast as we've done it before, but usually like a 2-week close period.
Do you have any memorable houses that you've flipped? Like anything that super out of
I've had some rough kind of hoarder houses, before. So yeah, I had a manufactured home. So it was a double-wide home that I purchased. It was actually pretty new. It should have been in good condition. But let's just say the home was being basically decommissioned part by part because it was such a mess on the one side, or let's say even the cats took over one side where the person was living in a smaller and smaller area. So there was, I don't know if I'd say mountains of cat poop, but there was, there was definitely some things that need to be cleaned out. Food everywhere, pizza boxes everywhere. Those are perfect environments for then also getting a lot of pests and a lot of things you might not want in a house. So that one was probably the most memorable. That one had to go down to the floor joist and had to really open stuff up and get obviously everything out and remediate, the smells and all that good stuff. But we did get it turned around, but that one was memorable and a lot of work.
Yeah. So a manufactured home, you can take it all the way down to the joist. Like is it just like a common built home almost?
Manufactured homes or mobile homes, trailers, right? It kind of goes different labels. There are different building codes, so you do need to be careful. Like I really don't like the outlets or receptacles that they use in mobile homes, the things that are approved to use. But yeah, like anything, it has wall cavities and it has structure that you can go down to. On those, you just need to be careful on that after repair value, right? So you just need to remember, like, if I do all this work, how much is it going to sell for at the end of the day, especially right now with material costs being crazy, lumber being very high pricing, and basically all your other material costs being very high. That is the biggest change from the pandemic, is some of the material costs because of supply chain, mostly supply chain hiccups. So there will be a lot of things that are out of stock, a lot of things that are much more expensive. So just doing a renovation can be a little bit more of a bear right now, because you might pick out all the things you want, and then even if you're hiring out, they might come back and say, "Oh, these 3 things are back ordered for 3 months." So you got to kind of make some different picks or trade-offs.
Do you think we've seen the peak of this for the hiccups in the supply chain, or you think it's
wood prices have definitely come down. So wood prices are tracked on what's called the Chicago Board of Trade. So they have kind of a tracking mechanism for that. It peaked at $1,700 for basically a bundle of lumber, and now it's all the way back down to like $750 or $800.
And I mean, it sounds like you're working on a lot of different homes with a lot of different standards. And something you mentioned was like kind of electrical and different projects, from knob and tube to the stuff you're seeing in like a manufactured home. Do you have like a preference that you're like, hey, outside of what is required, that you're putting into your project when you kind of modify all these different materials you're finding?
Like on the YouTube channel, I've done quite a bit on electrical. And one thing, I'm not a licensed anything. I'm not a licensed electrician. I'm not a licensed plumber. I'm not a licensed contractor. So basically mine is just sharing my experience and not necessarily telling you like the code in your area is exactly this, do exactly this. One thing I really think in terms of where you can spend money and get value, just in your simple outlets that you plug things into, most people call them receptacles. There's a 50-cent residential grade, very cheap, huge boxes at Home Depot. But then there's the first level of commercial grade, which is called spec grade. And that one's usually $2. But it's just so much better. And on the Everyday Home Repairs YouTube channel, I mean, I slice these things open and really compare the internals and show you that, wow, for $2, and really you don't have that many in your home, you might be spending another $100-$150. These are much better. They're going to hold, they're not going to get loose. They're going to hold the plug a lot better over time. It's just going to be a better install. So I do prefer to upgrade to kind of the commercial grade opposed to the lowest level residential. And that's for electrical and some other things too, like cabinets. Be careful buying the lowest level cabinets, because if you get like any water on those things or anything, they kind of start deteriorating pretty quickly.
So we just actually bought a set of cabinets at Lowe's for our photo studio to do a black background studio with some of the Z-line stuff. And I had to go return some because I opened the Lazy Susan box and it was just in crumbles. And when they returned, I returned it. It was so funny. The return later was just like, wow, we sold that? I was like, you sure did.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, Lazy Susans aren't cheap. Yeah, when you're doing a kitchen, if you have Lazy Susans or like the multi-drawer, those can add up really quickly in terms of your kitchen remodel. I like to get the ready to assemble cabinets. So there's plenty of dealers online basically that sell those. And honestly, for a lot of kitchens, it's not that you want to like completely redesign the kitchen. You just want to update the cabinets, update the look, maybe update the hardware. So, I mean, there's been many that I basically measure exactly the cabinets in the kitchen, right? Exactly what's there. And I just go and select those at one of the dealers. And usually I can get them for the prices of basically the ones that you bought at Lowe's or Home Depot. But they're plywood. The boxes are plywood, like 3/4 inch plywood. They have better drawer slides. It's a much higher quality. Now, with that said, they are ready to assemble. So you need to assemble that. There's a little more work that goes into it. But I think that, bang for the buck, if someone's doing like a DIY kitchen remodel, it's much better to buy those online.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest these particle board ones to anyone.
Yeah, I was going to say box of disintegrated particle
Yeah,
board.
it is exactly what happened.
And especially for
Yeah.
longevity too, because you're like, hey, a few years later and you want to do that next kitchen remodel and upgrade your fixtures, I'm sure the the higher quality is just going to last and make that project possible.
Yeah, you don't
Whereas
want to buy cabinets twice.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's in rental properties, that's a big one because it's almost inevitable that you're going to have water leaks in your vanity or water leaks in your sink base, just because people aren't looking at the drain pipes that much or looking at the water lines that much. So if you go with those cheap ones, I mean, they get beat up pretty quickly if any water gets on them.
Before we started recording, you're just talking about your internet connection and how you just got Starlink. I want to hear about this. What's that assembly like? What's the prep? What how's it work?
Yeah, so Starlink just in general is a satellite internet service brought to you by a company called SpaceX. If you don't know SpaceX, look them up. Pretty interesting company, kind of changing the way we get to space and what we do in the future, going to Mars and the moon and these different things. So the way that they're going to fund that, the way that SpaceX is going to go to Mars and build a city, or going to go to the moon and build a city, one of those ways is to build a basically world internet. So they are putting up a bunch of satellites. They, I think, are already like all the satellites. So all the satellites in orbit. I think the Starlink constellation is like half of all satellites. It's just this one basically program. And it's only going to ramp much faster. So usually in the past, satellite internet has been like your only option if you were a remote cabin, maybe rural community. You had to get satellite internet, and it was not great by any means. Just the speeds and the lag were really bad. So now Starlink is it's closer to Earth and a lot more satellites. So they just started their beta testing about 6 months back. So you could sign up for it, and you could get, for $500, you could get this satellite. It's, I forget what they call it, Dishy McFlatface or something. It's some funny name because it has a very flat top. So you can get a Dishy, and then you have to say what kind of mount you want. So I just used the standard, what's called volcano mount, which looks like Dish Network, or some of the satellite TV services, kind of the mounting that they do. So, and I mounted mine on the roof. So I went through on the channel first, when I first got it, I set it up and just showed the speeds, like how fast, how's it compare to my cable internet. And then the second one was actually the install, where I was installing it on the roof. I was putting a little bit more support underneath the decking for the roof, and then running the wire in, and then kind of setting up the power supply and stuff inside. So it's been good so far. It's not perfect by any means, but again, they are very early on to basically the progression of this, what they're going to be in terms of meshing the whole world. And I think it's in about 10 countries right now, but it is already an absolute game changer if you're in one of those rural communities. So it's already just, literally 20 times better than what you could get before. So if you have a rural cabin, or you're in just a rural community, you're on a farm, definitely something to look into. And it should be available pretty much in all the US. There was a little bit of a waiting list just from the demand, but I think they already have about 75,000 users, and growing very rapidly. They'll probably be at 500,000 users within 6 to 9 months. So they're ramping extremely fast, and it's not the solution for cities. It's not going to beat fiber, but think about cruise ships, airlines, anything that's moving, even over the road truckers. They will also be making basically modules for you. So now you can get good internet on a airline and actually do something on an airline, with good speeds. So that is coming very soon. And so far I've been happy, and it's a little shaky here and there, but the speeds already beat my coax cable internet that I was getting. The speeds are very competitive and already beating it, and I expect it to get 2 to 3 times faster even for me within the next year.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it sounds like a great alternative to traditional internet, which is so infrastructure dependent. Because as you mentioned, if you're in a rural location, they're not bringing fiber to you. You know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If there's, if there's only so many houses, they're not going to bore fiber, all the way out to you, or at least, and especially now, because I think, Starlink's teaming with a lot of the telecoms like AT&T. They're also teaming up with some of those. They haven't actually said which ones they're teaming up with, but for telecom to get, I think, approval or funding for 5G, they also have to serve some of the rural communities.
Hmm.
So for them to justify that and like put up new towers is super expensive. So instead, they'll just team up with Starlink, and Starlink will be able to serve that for them. So there'll be a lot of kind of intertwinings there, where basically Starlink is filling the gaps. And don't even think just the U.S., right? Think super rural Australia. I mean, I'm talking in the boondocks out back in Australia or in Africa. You now are going to have Starlink, and it is an absolute game changer. I mean, you're Netflixing now. You can do anything and everything you do in a city, which was simply not even possible before. So for some people, I'm excited to have it, but for some people, it's like it opens up an entirely new world for them.
Yeah, it's bringing them into the decades that we've been into, that they have been.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Hey guys, Drew from the Appliance Educator podcast here, and I just wanted to take a minute out to talk about our amazing sponsor, Z-Line Kitchen and Bath. You've heard the guests and the hosts talk about this amazing brand and all the attainable luxury that they create right here in the heart of Lake Tahoe, USA. From freestanding ranges to ventilation, dishwasher, and microwave, to everything you'll need to complete your next bathroom project, Z-Line Kitchen and Bath is bringing luxury into your next project.
Well, Nick, do you want to fire off? Nick's going to hit you up with some advice here.
So like I said earlier, I'm closing on a house, and
Yep.
The paneling on the house is like a cement asbestos mixture, and it's missing some panels. And I'm like getting different ideas from different people, and I want to get your kind of a idea on what maybe I should do about this, because I know removing that's going to be a real hassle, and not a lot of contractors are going to be cool.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a great advice for you, but yeah, asbestos or lead, you kind of get into these areas where contractors that would help you, let's say, or redo the exterior of your house, have to cover additional insurance, and the disposal of those materials is much more costly. So the pricing of this type of thing can be crazy. I used to have an old boss that bought a huge, beautiful old home. And he, I think, got a quote to just even paint the exterior because he wanted it to actually be scraped off. And it was lead. And the price came in just insane. Like the price was, tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars. So him and his kids for about 2 years were scraping and painting the outside of his house just because it was so costly. So I don't have great advice. Asbestos is something you have to look out for. It's usually something where if you get it in the air, right? So usually it's asbestos if you're like grinding it off or doing something like that. Okay, now you're getting these fibers in the air. If the fibers get into your lungs, these can be serious problems, and that's why it has restrictions and regulations behind it. So sometimes you can encapsulate it by just going over it. And that is sometimes an acceptable solution. So I don't know if that one for you is, can I just go over this with some type of vinyl product or something that's going to give me the look that I'm looking for, and also be safe and not be a complete shortcut. But to actually get that off and dispose of it correctly, that could be probably a little bit of a bill.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, get a few there and knock it down. Well,
for right or wrong, a lot of people take those on DIY for almost exactly that. They're like, okay, I'll get the super respirator, make sure all is good, but because the cost can be pretty pretty high.
Well, I thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good news, I'm sure.
Thanks for your time today and your tips, man. Honestly, some really great tidbits shared today. Where can everybody find you online? Go ahead and plug all your different places online so the audience can find you.
Yeah, so YouTube is kind of the one-stop shop, for everyday home repairs for the brand. We put out 2 videos per week, so we're super active over there.
Right.
But if somebody needs a little bit more advice and they have a picture or a video of what's going on in their house and they need some help, we do have a Facebook group that's called Everyday Home Repairs Community. So you can post your question, and you'll get answers immediately on at least advice for what people would do faced with that issue. We're building out more things coming forward. So the blog is growing right now. Our website, everydayhomerepairs.com, is growing, and kind of bring a lot of those videos into a blog form if somebody prefers to kind of read about those projects. But YouTube's a great place to start for us, and that is something you'll continue to find content coming out.
Sweet. Well, Scott, thanks for joining us again, and good luck in your ventures.
Yeah, we'd probably love to have you back too. I can just think of so many more questions to ask you about all these different unique projects. So thanks so much.
Yeah, for sure.
This was great, man. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
This has been the Appliance Educator podcast, brought to you by Z-Line Kitchen and Bath. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow @Appliance Educator for more tips and tricks and advice to keep your home running at optimal performance. If you have any ideas or topics you'd like to hear on future episodes of the show, leave us a comment. Appliance Educator, signing off.